Hello team and welcome back to Winners and Losers, the show where we look at the latest and greatest Premier League action from the weekend. Joining me, it's one of FD's greatest, it's Joseph Tomlinson holding up an orange football little number. Yes. What is that?
It's a little Dutch football number, a vintage Dutch football number, and I thought I'd wear it today in support of Ajax, winning the Klassieker yesterday. Huge result, huge goal for Anthony. On course to win the Eredivisie again. Beautiful scenes, Christopher.
Yeah, I sometimes forget about your soft spot for Ajax and, potentially Ten Hag as well. Is he tipping the scales in terms of who you want to see next at United over Pochettino now?
I don't know,
given
mate.
that Poch is not faring well at PSG.
He's not. I'm on the edge, and I don't want to talk about it, to be honest with you.
All right, we'll move on then. We'll move on to today's show. That is what the good people at home tuned in for. Let's start how we normally do with the talking point. And this is going to be our focus for today's show. We normally do a winner, loser, and moment of the week as well. We're going to stick with the North London sides for the majority of today's show because both of them prevailing in crunch ties over the weekend. Let's start with Arsenal, who overcame Aston Villa in the Midlands on Saturday. Joe, who was your star of the show in that game?
I'll probably go for Bukayo Saka, right? I think in the absence of Gabriel Martinelli, just looks so sensational going forward. Not carrying the attack, but the most dangerous member of the attack. We took pelters, didn't we, on Sunday Vibes for... we weren't really hammering Emile Smith-Rowe. We were just questioning, hasn't had the best 2022, hasn't started an awful lot of games. I think he's only scored one goal in 2022, so not necessarily the most informed player in that Arsenal attack. And I think Bukayo Saka, when he needs to, is still the most deadly. That's 9 goals this season, 14 goals and assists in 26 games. I think towards the end of the match started to look a little bit leggy, but that's totally understandable. He's put up the second most minutes in this Arsenal squad, I think behind Ben White, and this was an Arsenal side without Aaron Ramsdale, which is really key because he is so crucial to how they want to build from the back, how they want to start attacks, and they braved it out. They played really well, dug in, and at the end of the game, the full-time scenes, huge celebrations, and I saw certain pundits like Gabriel Agbonlahor calling him out, saying, well, we shouldn't be celebrating like you've won the league. I'm just not having it. I really disagree with Gabriel Agbonlahor there. This feels like the first time Arsenal fans have been able to connect to a team in ages. That was a season-defining result against a pretty dogged Aston Villa side, so they've got every right to celebrate massively, in my opinion, and Bukayo Saka really impressed me, and clearly impressed Mikel Arteta too.
He was really fatigued as well as the Liverpool. He had an issue in his hip. He's played a lot of minutes, and you could tell. And we don't want to risk. He needs to go with England now, and we decided the best thing to do was to take him off.
Yeah, I want to shout out Thomas Partey in this game as well. I thought it was excellent against Liverpool in the first half and gave Arsenal a real foothold against Aston Villa in the game on Saturday. He completed 100% of his tackles, 66% of his dribbles, and was extremely economic on the ball, completing 88% of his passes, which was vital for Arsenal on the day because Villa started with a very mobile front three of Coutinho, Buendia, Watkins, all press like hell, don't they? And he helped, slip Arsenal between the lines, slip past that first wave of the press and gave their attack, lots to go off. Don't want to talk about Aston Villa too much. Pretty non-existent in the first half. I almost fell asleep on the sofa in the first 45. Gerrard's men didn't register a single shot. Did put up 8 in the second half, so it was an improved performance after the first 45. With John McGinn in particular, I thought, driving Aston Villa forward. He put in one of the few redeeming performances for the home side. But Aston Villa, if we want to talk inconsistency, Aston Villa are up there, aren't they? They've now lost 15 games this season, more than anyone else inside the top 14. Leicester also drawing level on points with them after that victory over Brentford. They're only 5 points ahead of the likes of Newcastle. So their season, if they lose a couple more games, could quickly unravel. This was a side who established, or who wanted, they fired Dean Smith because they wanted to finish inside the top 10, right? That was their next big checkpoint, let's say. And Joe, after it's looking increasingly, not less likely, but in the balance, isn't it? So what I wanted to ask you, Joe, after a £230 million net spend in the last 3 campaigns, let's say, not windows, would anything else anything other than top half finish be a failure for Aston Villa in the 2021 season or 21-22 season? Wow.
Absolutely. For me, I think so. I know that it's £230 million net spend, but let's not forget that includes a £100 million sale of a star asset in Jack Grealish. So it's actually over £330 million, isn't it, in terms of outlay? And the players they bought in the summer should be good enough to get them into a top 10. And I've been disappointed with a lot of their transfers. I think Leon Bailey, I know he's had injury problems, has been a little bit disappointing. I think we were all expecting more. Danny Ings can't get game at the moment. He just obviously doesn't fit into Steven Gerrard's way of thinking and his new system, does he? He's kind of coming off the bench and having fairly minimal impact at times. Even Luca Dean injured at the weekend as well, and he's been okay. But I think overall, anything other than a top 10 finish is going to be not disastrous, but a setback, given they're only 5 points clear of Newcastle at this point, and they've really, really struggled against teams above them. They've still got to play Leicester, who I know are behind them, but they are rapidly chasing them down. If they win their games, they could jump above them. They've still got to play Tottenham, they've still got to play Wolves, City, Liverpool. Let's hope for Steven Gerrard's sake this season doesn't unravel, because when he first came in, there was lots of sort of positivity. That's kind of waned a little bit recently, and after the game, he was a little bit rattled with Des Kelly, wasn't he, in his post-match interviews when he was talking about not being able to beat the teams above them in the league and those performances. In fact, let's hear from the big man himself right now.
We are where we are. You know, we're taking steps forward. We're looking at a good team. Everything looks positive, and then we're taking a couple back. We're finding it difficult against the teams that are higher up in the league. But that's there for a reason. You know, we're striving to get there. We're not going to get there overnight. So that's the challenge. And we've got to live with the expectation and the pressure whilst we're going through that process.
Right, let's move on to Spurs then, who beat West Ham 3-1 on Sunday. And it was a performance that belied their inconsistency, really. In the 16 games prior to this, Conte's men had followed up every single victory with a loss. And now, after beating Brighton, they've got back-to-back Premier League wins for the first time in 2022, making this hunt for the top four all the more interesting. Hence why we're focusing on it today. Joe, who were you impressed with then in this tie? A couple of outstanding candidates, a couple of usual suspects, really.
I mean, where would they be without Son and Kane? Honestly, if Son and Kane were playing for like another team in the top half, in like the top four race, you'd be thinking it is game over for Champions League contention. But Tottenham do have those wobbles in them, don't they? But I actually think this top four race between Arsenal and Spurs is bang on now, given the form of Son and the form of Kane. Son now goal involvement every 0.7 games this season, just incredible. The combination between those two, when Kane drops into that half space, Son runs in behind, is just unbelievable. I think half of Kane's assists this season have come for Son. It's like 38 goal contributions those two have mixed in together, which I think is a Premier League record. They've got a lovely flow between them. When Kane drops deep, I think it was 4 key passes yesterday. He's just an absolute maestro in that role. And it's not just the attacking output he's doing well. I think he won 4 of his 5 ground duels. He's battling under Antonio Conte. Also very impressed by Kulusevski. Looks like another huge L for Juventus this season. They've had an absolute disastrous campaign and now sold one of a very bright young forward, I would say, in Kulusevski, who looks like he's certainly going to be one for the future. Tottenham fans talking about him being one of their best signings in recent years. I think 4 shots on the day, and just looks like he fits in straight away to that front line, doesn't he? Looks like exactly what Antonio Conte wants. And I know there's another man they signed in January, another L for Juventus that you loved, Bentancur, hamster. I mean, he's got a bit, hasn't he? I want to see Bentancur and Skip in that midfield.
Yeah, mate. Bentancur was absolutely purring yesterday. And one observation I did make was his ability to take it on the back foot, which is pretty rare for a defensive midfielder. And it makes all the difference if you're a team like Antonio Conte Spurs, who play the majority of their football or attacking football on the counter-attack, right? Because it means that things just happen quicker, a split second quicker. And we saw it for, I believe, the second goal when he did a smart little turn in midfield, smacks it into Harry Kane's feet, and Harry Kane obviously puts a sublime pass through for Son. That goal doesn't come about, though, unless Bentancur is thinking, unless he's active in the centre of midfield. And active he was, a 95% pass completion rate. And a lot of those passes were fairly ambitious too. 3 out of 3 long balls completed, 4 out of 6 ground duels won. He's got a bit of bite to go along with that very sort of consummate distribution, a team high amount of touches. He's becoming a conduit for their play at the base of midfield. I liked him at Juventus, and he was always available at Juventus as well. A great fitness record at Juventus, and Spurs have sort of lacked that availability in central midfield for a little while. So he seems to have everything. I really like him. I hope he can sustain this form for the rest of the season. But let's hear from opposing manager David Moyes, who had, he was singing the praise of Son and Kane, much like the rest of the footballing world.
Tottenham hadn't really caused any problem. I saw them doing the same with Everton the other week there, where very little opportunities. Everton had the ball in the breakaway. Their counter-attack's so good through Kane and Son. They done it to us today as well. But certainly think the first one was an own goal, I think. The second one was a deflection. So we'd gone 2-0 down. I wouldn't say that it wasn't deserved, but unfortunate circumstances.
Right then, Joe, let's wrap up this section by discussing the top 4. We seem to change our opinions every other week, but it is so tight, like you said. Do you agree with Jamie Redknapp that the top 4 race could come down to that rearranged North London derby?
No, I don't. First and foremost, fair. I think Arsenal are, by some way, playing the best football of any of the top 4 chasing sides. I think they are fairly comfortably the 4th best team in the Premier League. Although I've said it recently, I actually think in terms of form and the way they're playing football, I actually think they're the 3rd best team in the Premier League. I know that Chelsea are on a really good run at the moment, but just aesthetically wise and the points that Arsenal are able to pick up, I think they are right in and around Chelsea in terms of quality.
I think that's unfair to say. Teams you enjoy watching.
Yeah, certainly. And I think Chelsea obviously are a better squad and going to go deeper in the Champions League, blah, blah, blah. But Arsenal, I think, are flying at the moment. So I'm fully behind Mikel Arteta getting this top 4. I think he's going to do it no matter what happens in that North London derby. And to be honest with you, I think Arsenal have too much for Tottenham in the North London derby. I know that he's got a little bit moany recently, though, Arteta, about the fixture scheduling. And do you know what? Fine. Fair play to him. Little bit, whingy, but that's what the best managers do, isn't it, Hamster?
Well, yeah, let's hear what he actually had to say, because Conte had a retort for him, which we're also going to touch upon.
I do, because I'm talking about the Premier League, and I heard some comments about mixing. When you are in Europe, it's nothing new. It's nothing new to me, but I'm not comparing Europe. I'm comparing the Premier League and how we schedule the games in the Premier League. When you are in Europe and they have the Premier League, it's a different story. What I'm comparing is the Premier League, and it's very different.
You've got to do it again in a few weeks with the Chelsea and Manchester United games.
Yes.
Particularly unfair.
That's why we've been the only team that has been scheduled like that. And I'm not talking again about Europe, because some of those teams are not going to be involved in Europe.
I mean, on Sunday Vibes, Joseph Tomlinson, you did ask for more bad blood in the upper echelons of the Premier League. You said you were sick of how cordial Guardiola and Klopp were being with one another. So maybe we finally have a bit of nitty-gritty in North London. This is what Conte had to say when he heard Arteta giving it all that.
Yeah, but only want to remember Arteta, the game that we postponed. Tottenham Arsenal, okay? Yeah, if we speak about unfair, okay? And I stop.
But in general, is because obviously...
No, but in general, I think that my answer is enough. Okay? Yeah, it's enough. If someone want to speak about fair or unfair, and we postponed the game, Tottenham Arsenal, if you remember, I don't forget this. And I think that it's not right to speak about fair and unfair.
I mean, it's not quite Conte versus Mourinho, is it? But we might see some more fireworks if things remain this tight. Only 3 points separate the sides at the moment, although Arsenal do have a game in hand. Although, we'll caveat that with, Arsenal have a marginally tougher run-in. So they've got 3 of last year's top 6 to play. I think Chelsea, Man United, West Ham still, while Tottenham only have 2. And one of them is an out-of-sorts Leicester. Oof. So, Exactly, Joseph. Anything to add before we move on to our winners, losers, and moment of the week, which we're going to fly through, by the way.
Not too much.
Spent ages on that.
Not too much, but I wouldn't pay much credence to those fixtures because Tottenham are better against the bigger sides, crap against the lower half when they've got to actually break down a low block, aren't they? So I'm still backing Arsenal. Before we go, who do you think gets top 4?
Oh, I mean, I said Tottenham, didn't I, in the podcast?
Ooh.
So I don't want to flip-flop too much.
Ooh.
I'm going to stick with them, and if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. Although, I've always been a great defender of Mikel Arteta. So I am happy that he's coming good as well, to be perfectly honest. Right, let's move on to winners. Is Leeds this week. And I forgot to include a handle here. So whoever sent Leeds in, thank you very much. They overcame Wolves, didn't they, at the Molineux. Came from 2-0 down to prevail 3-2. All the goals coming, of course, after Raul Jimenez was sent off. 7 points clear of the relegation zone now, although all the teams below them have a game in hand. Do you think this just about seals their safety, Tomlinson, or still unsure?
Yeah, I think so. I think the bottom 3 teams are pretty much now. To be honest with you,
analysis.
This was a huge result for Leeds, man. The goals are so bad as well. They're just so scrappy, aren't they? The one that hits the bar twice is just like comical. Wolves really shoot themselves in the foot defensively, but Leeds don't care, man. It's all about results, not about performances. And Jesse Marsch, I'm delighted for him because I think he speaks really well. I really want him to do well at Leeds, despite the fact it's Leeds. So this was a huge result, and I do think it probably saves them.
Yeah, I had an absolute stinker. I only watched the first half. I remember at the end of the first half tweeting, like, how is João Moutinho still running games at 35, one of the most underrated ballers in the Premier League? Turned it back on, like 88th minute, and Leeds were scoring a winner. So fair play to them for staying in that game. Our losers this week are Everton, as they seem to be every other week. And this comes from @Regista per 90, or expected Regista per 90. Of course, Everton pumped 4-0 in the FA Cup by Crystal Palace, prompting a hilarious interview from Frank Lampard. It is so good. Unfortunately, it's not a Sky interview, so we don't have the rights, so we can't show it. But I mean, his dissection of the game was average goal, fluke goal, average goal. It was really throwback stuff. It was classic. Any thoughts on the game? Because I know that your boy Elise was a threat throughout, wasn't it?
Yeah, sensational. I think that's now the joint most assists for a player under the age of 21, of a Premier League player under the age of 21, with 8 alongside Phil Foden now for Michael Elise. He's so sensational, man. He's just so good. Like, this is his first season in the Premier League, and he looks like he's been here about 10 years. He's so good. But yeah, Everton are just a disaster, aren't they? They're an actual disaster. Like,
there's no point.
Yeah, I think
you don't need to say anymore.
I think Frank Lampard summed up when he said he'd basically give him a bye to the semi-finals.
We've done a how to fix on them. We've covered them extensively on Sunday Vibes. No more Everton chat. They are just bush. Okay, full stop. A moment of the week. There's no point doing that this week because everyone was like Lampard's interview. So at least he takes something away from this week. That is the end of winners and losers for another week. Joseph, have you got anything to plug across Football Daily, your Football Daily, the podcast, maybe Snapchat as well?
Yeah, why not go and watch Sunday Vibes if you haven't already? With that Emile Smith Rowe controversy, the comment section was heating up. So go and hammer me, Chris and Doogie with your opinion as well if you're a Gooner.
I just don't see how it's a controversial opinion. He's a good player, but Jadon Sancho has the ability to be a generational talent.
Oh,
should probably work out how to get him firing for England if we want to win anything. But there we have it. Like this video, subscribe to the channel with notifications on, and we'll see you next time. Bye.